Several vacant buildings in Macomb are under new ownership and on the brink of being developed into something new. As we first reported last week, the former Kmart was purchased by the California-based Carrington Company, but more purchases have surfaced since then. WGEM's Dylan Smith talked with officials about how close some of those buildings are to seeing new life.
Driving down Jackson Street in Macomb, you'll notice for sale signs. Buildings that have sat empty for years, their doors boarded with plywood.
We've had a lot of interest, what I call the tire kicking, all along.
But some are on the verge of turning that around. In recent weeks, the former Kmart that sat empty for more than 5 years was purchased. But now, the former Pizza Hut that sat empty for nearly 2 years is also under new management, and by the same group. Mayor Michael Inman says he and Macomb Area Economic Development Corporation Executive Director Kim Pierce talked with the Carrington Company in May, and it's paid off.
It seems like it's taken a while, but would we have rather had this store occupied and another way, rather than sitting vacant for the last, half dozen years? We sure would. Common sense would tell you that if that's developed, that other property around it is going to be worth something too.
Just down the street, Carrington also bought the former Marine Bank. While Inman says the company plans up to 5 national retailers in the old Kmart, the plans for these 2 buildings are unclear.
And at the end of the day, they have not shared those plans with us. They will eventually, they'll have to, because there'll be building permits that need to be acquired and things like that.
But he and Pierce have no doubt that each property will be developed, and it's the closest they've come to filling those spaces again.
For it to have happened as swiftly as it did for these 2 properties, the former Kmart and the former Marine Bank, it usually, in the past, it wasn't quite that scenario.
Dylan Smith, WGEM News, Macomb.
And Inman says Carrington officials haven't shared a timeline yet on plans to rehab and fill those buildings.